Well, it's a new world for retirees, and that comes with some new questions. And with that thought in mind, we're going to bring you a top 5 list here on Retire Colorado, the top 5 retirement questions with Alicia and Josh Lewis. I'm Bruce Steinbrock. Reach out to the Lehman Lewis team today, 970-446-1234. Also, remember to find Alicia, Josh, and this Retire Colorado program on Spotify, Apple Podcast, on the YouTube platform. And remember to hit that subscribe button so that you know when new episodes are launched. But again, just you can also go to lehmanlewis.com on the World Wide Web and check out the beautiful website as well and find all of this there and subscribe to what's going on. Okay, well, retirement, we're going to check things off of our bucket list today here on the program and the top 5 questions that maybe come to your mind when we do this. So let's go with one of the top 5 questions. Should I get that dream retirement home and take out a new mortgage while I do that? So, Alicia, how do you help somebody maybe think through this?
Oh, this is a good one. I would say there's no right or wrong answer here, but what we would do is kind of walk through what does that look like? What is your budget? What are, some of your cash flows and income streams and lifestyle goals? Are you looking for a long-term forever home? Is this a, you said dream home. Is it a second home? Is it a first home? Like, what are all those details? So really, I wouldn't say it's a yes or no. I think it's more of how is this going to be sustainable and working through the numbers because numbers don't lie. But also working through how that feels to you. Right. So, definitely something that we love doing because I think, a lot of times people in retirement, we see it more and more where people are saying, we're retiring and we want to buy our dream home, but we don't need what we have now because this is the house we raised the kids in, or some people are saying we want to go bigger because now our kids have kids and we want to, house all of them. So this conversation actually comes up quite a bit. So there's no right or wrong answer here. Unless you're not planning, right? The right answer is plan. Come in, talk to us, and let's chat through that. Let's dig in.
And I think that's the most beautiful part of this is it's a discussion. Yeah. What's right? And then let's unpack, is it right? And if it's not right, how can we get to the right spot? So it comes down to discussing it. And Alicia and Josh would love to have that conversation with you. 970-446-1234, the number to reach out to the Lehman Lewis Financial Group. All right. This one I think is probably one that is top of mind for most people retiring, and they have an existing mortgage, and they're close. I mean, normally when you get to retirement, and you took out a 30-year mortgage, you probably took it out in your 20s or 30s. So if you're retiring at 60, you're probably getting close to paying it off. But you're so close, you want to cash in some money to do it. So should I pay off my mortgage before I retire? And what are some factors, Josh, you help people with considering this decision?
You're absolutely right. This is a big question that comes up. And I think kind of some of those qualifying questions, excuse me, would come into play like, what's your interest rate, right? Because I think, you look at just baby boomers in general, it's like over 70% of those good folks are sitting on sub 3% 30-year mortgages. So when you look at, hey, I'm paying 3%, I owe $60,000 on that. Depends on where you're going to take the money from, right? So I think a lot of times we want to know what that interest rate is, what the balance is, because obviously you're not getting a big tax deduction amount on that, especially with standard deduction so high. So we want to look at that aspect. But if you're saying, hey, I've got $2 million in my IRA or 401k, probably doesn't make sense to pull that money out because it's going to increase your, taxable income. It's going to increase your MAGI, which could increase the taxes on your Social Security, could increase your Medicare premiums. So there's kind of all of these things where what kind of money do you have to pay off the house? But then is the juice worth the squeeze? Because if you're taking money out of the market that's, making 6, 7, 8%, does it make sense to service a 3% debt with that money probably not, because you're going to be dollars ahead by not paying that off. So,
but then on the flip side, I always argue, this is what we do. We always argue like, well, what about this?
Yes.
Because sometimes it is like, well, but what if the market goes down and then we lose that money, blah, blah, blah. But then, if it is the really low interest rate, we're like, hey, look, you could get better in the bank even.
Right.
So yeah, there is, but sometimes it is peace of mind too. Some people are just like, oh, I just feel, and you can't pay for peace of mind, right? That is, if that is a weight off your shoulders, we can find a way to make that happen, but it definitely is crunching the numbers and making sure.
And looking at it in your retirement plan too. Like, do you have the assets to sustain and service that debt when you go into retirement? Sometimes people have really great income, but they don't have a lot of investable assets. So that's where you would want to kind of reduce some of the overhead, like a mortgage. But again, making sure that it makes good financial sense to pay off that note. So definitely a conversation. It's not right for everybody. And there's a lot of factors that go with it.
But as I said, that's probably one of, to me, it's probably the top one that people come in with that question. So we're going over the top retirement questions that a lot of folks have and unpacking that with you here on the show, Retire Colorado with Alicia and Josh Lewis. And that brings us to the next question. How much should I have saved at my age? And Alicia, so that somebody comes in and like, let's just say they're 63. Hey, this is what I've saved. Is it right? Is it enough? Am I good?
I'll never forget the woman that came in. She was so eager. She was like sitting on the edge of her seat. Like, just tell me the number that I need to have in order to retire. And I kind of giggled, like in a sweet way. I wasn't like making fun of her, but I was just like, well, tell me a lot more about yourself. Do you need $20,000 a month to live the life you want? Or do you need two? Right. There's such a huge range there, and you're going to need a different amount based on what your lifestyle is, what your debt is, just all the things, what other, income are you going to have coming in? So there is not a magic number. It is a lot of numbers put together to make the magic happen. So that's what we do. And that's where we can kind of show you, here's where you're at. And, again, we are looking at all the nitty gritty, everything, right? Even inflation and taxes and all of those things that really, I think people don't, think about when it comes to retirement, or they do, of course. A lot of people, top of mind is inflation, but maybe they haven't put the numbers down to recognize how inflation is the silent killer. And so we're looking at that from now until age 100. What does that look like? And how much money are you going to need and sustain your life and have those income bumps that is going to be able to support you? So there's a lot that goes into it. There's no magic number.
Yeah, and speaking of bumps, volatility, we've had a lot of it. You think COVID forward, COVID took a huge dip and then recovered by the end of the year. We had 2022 when stocks and bonds were down for only the third time at the same time, 31.69, 2022. And so here's one of the top 5 retirement questions. My 401k is down right now a lot, Josh. Should I stop contributing and doing something else with that money, like putting it in the bank or paying down debt? How do you help them uncover this question?
Yeah, this is a big one, right? And I think it kind of depends on where you're at, like in the cycle. And when I say the cycle, I mean kind of your life cycle. If you're 25, obviously, and you're trying to pay off your mortgage, that's going to be a tough road to hoe. So I would say continue contributing to the market. What's funny about Americans? The only thing we never buy when it's on sale, stocks, right? Everyone thinks, oh gosh, all this stuff at the store's on sale, I should buy it. Well, when the market goes down, everybody pulls back. And if you're betting against the economy over a long period of time, you're probably going to be wrong. So I think looking at the market when it's down and you're still, let's say your contribution's $1,000 a month, right? And Apple stock goes down by $20. Guess what? You just saved $20 on buying more Apple stock. So I think a lot of times people get fearful and they say, oh, I should refocus where I'm putting my money. But I would say the opposite is really when people make money, right? And it kind of goes back to, there's all these adages like Warren Buffett, be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy. And, when the market sells off, that's when people get fearful, and that's your opportunity to buy things at a discount. But if you're longer in that cycle, right, and you're saying, hey, I'm retiring in 2 years and me putting another, $30,000 in my 401k isn't going to be significant, then maybe it makes sense to redirect some of that money to maybe something a little more immediate. But again, it's really going to depend on your situation and kind of what your portfolio is doing, obviously. And I'd love to look at the market analytics with that with you to kind of quantify that. But I think also just looking at where you're at in terms of like, hey, if I'm going to shift this contribution of $400 a month to paying off my house where I owe $500,000, you're not really moving the needle, right? So again, it kind of depends on where you're at with everything. But again, this is all part of that conversation that we have with people every single day on where are we directing capital and how is it moving the needle so that we can live, successful lives in retirement.
Yeah. And then our final question. Here it is. Yes. Just brought a little magic to it. And it is just that, the volatility. Okay. Is there a best time to get out of the markets and a best time to get back in? And I mean, this is timing the market is not what you want to do in retirement. It's time in the market.
Yep. Amen, brother. That's the thing, right? Volatility is going to come and it's going to go. And I think if you're looking at the market in terms of long-term trends, the trend is always up and to the right. I think a lot of times when people look at the volatility, just zoom out and it's not that big of a deal. When you look at some of those sell-offs, even when you mentioned it, and you talk about these catastrophic sell-offs, when you're looking at the chart, on a 1 week or a 1 month, it looks just horrendous. And, the world is ending. But when you zoom out, it's just a blip on the radar. And so I think the biggest thing with timing the market is you got to be right twice. Yeah. You got to be right at the top and you got to be right at the bottom. And a bell doesn't ring when it hits either one of those places. So really knowing how your allocation works and having a proper allocation is going to help smooth the ride, and also looking at it in context of what's your time horizon with that money.
Alicia, give us the number, how they can just reach out, start the conversation with you and the team.
Yeah, the number is 970-446-1234. If there is even one thing that you heard where you're like, gosh, I just need to double check, or I want a second opinion, or maybe this is your very first opinion that you're receiving, come in and chat with us, all things retirement, here at Lehman Lewis Financial Group, 970-446-1234.
And that wraps up today's Retire Colorado. Guys, great to be with you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks, you too.
As well.